Hello, I'm NecroPolo. My YouTube channel primarily functions as a display for my music releases. Still, from time to time, you can find some content about guitar gear, recording gear, and things like that. So, this one will be that one. When it comes to gear reviews on YouTube, I often wonder of how useful are they really. Most reviews are about new gear. To me, it's sounding a little like, "Hello, my viewers! Subscribe, like, purchase my t-shirt, support me on Patreon." But now today's sponsor.
Make your day. Use a flipper by Cockflopper.
Cockflopper by Flippers. Use my discount code below. Okay, let's look at this wonderful amplifier by Super Duper. It was released next week. Super Duper sent me because I have a lot of subscribers. Subscribe, like, purchase my t-shirt, support me on Patreon. I've been using this for 1 day and I swear that it's the best amplifier on the world. So much better than all the amplifiers that I previously said that are the best amplifiers in the world. This is the best. So the clean sound. The dirty sound. I've been playing for 50 years and I can make sound everything great. It's great by itself, for real. Wow, you can hear that it is doing so much better the same thing that all the others. And it has features. So if you want to imitate your favorite guitarist that has already 5 zillion copies, buy this, use presets only. Be someone else better! So this episode was brought to you by Cockflipper by Floppers. Subscribe, like, purchase my t-shirt, support me on Patreon. And don't forget to check my almost new test guitar gear store. Link in the description below. Spend money! Well, I'm not really blaming these guys because, you have to make a living. But do they deliver useful information as a first-day experience? I don't know. You can decide if something is really good and reliable only on the long run. So my review about this little guy will be based on real-life experience from the last 18 months of ownership and heavy abuse with utter honesty. Maybe it's useful to speak about my past as a guitarist. Considering guitar gear, I started very old school. Basically, guitar, cable, amplifier, cab. It was my way for 15 years. I've always been a Marshall guy. I had a couple of them during the time, and I still have my most favorite one, the 50-watt GCM 900 SLX, model 2500. Due to a spine problem, I stopped using this old-school gear around 2009. I switched to easy-to-carry analog amp sims by AMT Electronics. I switched because light gear and easy logistics solved a problem to me. But honestly, going DI and using an analog amp sim wasn't a step back, it was a step forward. Besides the fact that these preamps sounded great, they also provided a very consistent sound from show to show, and also a very well-controlled stage sound. So overall, going DI improved the sound of the bands live quite much. I built pedal boards around the same core, always improving and making it more straight to the point. I believe less is always more. So I kept optimizing. Then around 5 years ago, with a couple of good friends, we started an acoustic project called Diabolus in Musica. We recorded some smaller material, a couple of songs, 2 EPs. But around the beginning, this project didn't take itself too seriously. Then, eventually, it did. We decided that on the first album, we sort of pushed the boundaries. So besides acoustic instruments, we used keyboards, we used electric guitars, we used, very heavy distorted guitars at times, a lot of time-based effects, delays, reverbs, to make the album more interesting. Finally, it became released, and we started a promotion tour. Well, there we faced that our previous touring gear just doesn't cut it anymore. To present the new songs, we will need time-based effects on stage, so I need a programmable reverb delay pedal. Last time I bought something like this was around 2002, a Boss DD6 digital delay. It wasn't my cheapest pedal ever, but it also wasn't too expensive back in the day. But in 2023, a programmable delay reverb pedal, my goodness. First I thought that accidentally the webshop was showing some different currency. Well, those prices, so way above my budget. Finally, I decided that I will pull the trigger on a Zoom G.
It has some delays, some reverbs, and you can save presets. Not stellar, but functional. Then this thing happened. We performed with the band, including an old friend of mine. He's a very good guy, but honestly, he never sounded good on stage. But there, he did. Then, came the big question among guitarists, like, what is your gear nowadays? And he was going, yeah, I bought this cheap Ampero. I needed something to replace my Line 6 because some asshole splashed a glass of beer on it last week. I didn't have money for a new one, and this little stuff is just half the size, half the price. And it works, yeah. I said, and was thinking that, well, if a guy with over 2 decades of complete guitar sound tone deafness can get some good sounds out of it, then maybe it's worth checking. So I did. I've been aware that this company, Hotone, exists. I just had no experience. As a recording engineer, I've seen a lot of DI devices and amp sims throughout the years. But when it comes to digital amp modeling, people tended to buy and use more expensive ones. Kemper, XFX, Line 6 Helix, and maybe the cheapest one that the guys brought here to record was this tiny head rush, around the price of a Line 6 Helix Stomp. So I just checked what Hotone has to offer. There I noticed a fresh new tiny box called Ampero Mini, not much bigger than a simple Stomp box. I checked the feature list and demos, and it ticked all the boxes for me. Then I checked the price and availability. Well, this little thing was about half the price of a programmable digital delay pedal. So, considering this, and not even considering that it's an amp sim, I ordered this one instead of the Zoom. Then it arrived, unboxing, whatsoever. It's a pretty impressive tiny computer. Considering color, I wasn't too lucky because on the pictures, this platinum version looks like platinum, a bit like silver. Well, in the reality, it's some metal flake, translucent Barbie pink. It has the most disadvantageous appearance among all of them, but just like Ugly Betty in the dark, it has nothing to do with function. As opposed to most people, I guess. After checking the manual, instead of checking factory presets, I immediately started to program my album sounds. Okay, I have to fiddle with this audio gear by profession as a sound engineer. Still a great workflow and layout deserves appreciation. And I think something that after the first turning on, 10 or 15 minutes passes and you already have all the tempo delay effects that you need from the unit. Well, it's bloody impressive. I was going, okay, if you play like this, then let's continue with all the amplifier sounds for the electric guitar, just out of curiosity. As a long-term minimalist, I'm sort of lucky when it comes to amp sims. I've always used standard stuff. Unmodded amplifiers, unmodded caps, standard selection speakers. Knobs are usually around noon, so amp modelers from the very beginning of time seemed to include everything that I've ever used for recording. And as an adamant archivist, I have stored guitar tracks from the last 2 decades. So for MSIM programming, all I have to do is to dig up an old track and tweak, A/B test, tweak until it sounds identical to the original. Not a big deal. But even so, after just, 25 minutes being ready with all the electric guitar sounds, all the amplifiers, all the caps and the stuff from the album, that it was just the first time I've ever seen the unit. I think it's bloody impressive. I was quite surprised. I suspected that it will require an afternoon, understanding the workflow, the signal flow. When it comes to layouts, these units always have a catch, but to me the Ampero Mini had none. As I used the PC editor, after setting the very first preset, it felt like an old friend. For the full picture, I must add that on the way, on the road, I had to adjust a couple of things through its touch screen. And even though it's a little bit less fluent, still it's very easy. So there I was, thinking, okay, I suspected a complete afternoon for all of this, and now less than 30 minutes passed and I'm ready, I'm bored. So what should I do? Playing? No way. Old porn stars don't fuck. Practice? No. Last time I fell asleep on the chair and almost smashed my headstock. So I decided that I will program all the sounds of all the bands I recorded with since 1992. Dozens of albums, all the rhythm and solo sounds. Well, I was ready in 2 hours. So much about workflow. Okay, this device was intended for onstage use, and I don't use anything that I cannot depend on completely. So I was going, okay, little cheap bugger, you're smart, but show me what you got. So having my old pedal board as a backup around all the time, the Ampero Mini received the following shit tests. 48 hours continuous operation in the studio with allowed 1 kHz sine wave, testing dropouts 0. 24 hours continuous operation during a theater rehearsal and then a play, passed. Intentionally being left on a summer stage 2 hours before the gig, checking overheating, passed. Open stage, light rain, left it on stage, turned on. Humidity test, passed. And things like that. Whenever some opportunity arrived to abuse this little box, I did it. Temperatures burning, freezing, humidity, vibration, dust. It just passed with flying colors. I don't want to generalize this. Maybe my Ampero Mini was assembled by John Wick, who knows. But this is what happened. 128 gigs with 0 bad moments. For the full picture, all the bands where I play now are using different Hotone Ampero units on stage. All my fellow guitarists. None of them reported problems. And before getting the wrong idea, please let me remind you what I've said around the beginning of this video. It's all based on practical experience of myself using this unit on stage in the last, year and a half. And it's not a paid content. So if you have reached the video so far, maybe I can start to reveal what this dramatic thumbnail suggests. Is it a toy or a game changer in the practice? Well, instead of saying yes or no, you decide. I just tell the story of how I use it on stage. So somewhere around 2023 I started to use the Ampero Mini for my Ovation guitar with Diabolus in Musica. Around the time we started to work with a very young and talented live sound engineer called Donny. He suggested a lot of clever things to improve the sound of the band. So the Ampero Mini became my electric guitar rig there. After the album supporting tour with my oldest still active band, Vatskor, we had an anniversary live show series, maybe 5 gigs, celebrating the release of our first full album. 20 years. Damn, I'm old. It wasn't the plan, but because of logistics, around the middle of the tour, I switched to the Ampero Mini. Well, when after the show, fans say that it's been a massive flashback, and bandmates say that the sound, it feels like 2002 again. Of course it does, because it was A-B tweaked, according to the original raw guitar tracks. So I use the Ampero Mini there too. When it comes to the third touring band, Erdog, well, Donny is the sound engineer there too. So again, clever suggestions, tweaking, little clever things. He suggested to switch to the Ampero Mini. So it happened. And last but perhaps not least, the coming NecroPolo live acts. The pedal that made live performances possible was the Digitech Drop, as it can detune your guitar where it's needed. You know, because NecroPolo songs are composed primarily on a keyboard. Well, they don't lock to one guitar tuning. I use 5 different ones, changing from song to song. And guess what? The Ampero Mini has a pretty good emulation of this pedal. So the core of the coming NecroPolo shows will be the Ampero Mini. So, apart from a couple of specialized units, like the Shure Wireless, the TC Mimic Doubler, the Digitech Gemman XT looper that I use as a wave player, and of course a DI box. So, apart from these things, everything I've ever used can be crammed into this tiny form factor. And even this particular unit has a just a ridiculously good service record. Still, if something happens to it, I just buy another one for half the price of a programmable delay pedal. I just have to load the presets in 10 seconds. Quite convenient. So, for the full picture, even if this review is completely positive, besides all the merits, this unit has a couple of bad sides too. For example, its own adapter is a joke. Not because of the unit itself, but it has such terrible wires that I wouldn't use even for decoration, because it will break. Then the onboard tuner. It does the job, but even an old, slow Boss TU2 tuner is more responsive. And the touchscreen. I'm not sure that a Neutrik plug wouldn't smash it, just like instantly. Of course, you can improve it with some screen protector foil, but still it's very fragile. And switching between presets. It's not instant, and even if effects tail is on, well, it doesn't work well. In the practice, it works like these very ancient digital effect units. You have to prepare. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, wait, switch. I think it's not new for old guys like me. Sorry. And when it comes to controls, it's 2 switches. It's quite limited. Even if you use the extension pedal, unlocking some functions, it's still quite limited. So you may consider the Ampero Mini version only if you can live with its limitations. But if you can, it's a very nice companion. And of course, always comes a question like, okay, but considering quality of emulation, is it on the level of an XFX 15 or Octo Cortex Kemper ProLifer Helix? Well, probably not. But in the price range of an Ampero Mini, these questions make no sense. You can buy 10 Ampero Minis for the price of any of them, and still 10 Minis will occupy a smaller place, for sure. Besides, if you can tell the difference between these or those in an A/B blind test, well, good luck. You will fail. So when it comes to this paradigm of price, features, functionality, and logistics, I think it's very hard to beat it. Damn, it's been long. So that's all about it. NecroPolo out. See you somewhere in time.